Before we delve into this podcast, a quick note from the sponsors. Now, the sponsors of this podcast is an amazing product that is formulated from a mature hops extract. And this extract is absolutely amazing at getting us to burn fat without losing any muscle. Now, visceral fat, which is that hidden fat that surrounds all our organs, including our heart and our liver, our intestines, our gallbladder, and can be linked to things like fatty liver disease, affects so many people. We all know there's an obesity crisis, but even if you're not obese or overweight, you can still have health conditions that are linked to visceral fat. And this mature hops extract is a simple product that is completely natural, very safe, no known side effects, that can simply be added to any drink once or twice a day, that can trigger activating brown fat adipose tissue to be burnt by the body, which increases the body's thermogenic response and helps us to burn fat smarter, not harder. So at a time when every single chronic disease that we can think of is linked to excess weight, excess toxins stored in this visceral fat, and all the health conditions that are linked to it, who doesn't want to actually have a solution that's available to every single one of us that we can really start our weight loss journey today? It's about getting rid of that fat that's storing toxins in your body that is causing so many knock-on physical health problems, but also having a dramatic effect on your self-confidence and how you show up in the world. So if you want any more amazing detail, then look at the link below. You will, when you sign up for that link, you will get an email into your inbox which says burn fat smarter, not faster. If you don't see it within 5 minutes, check your spam. The details of how to contact me are in there or also in the description box below. Let's all really just start now. Don't wait till the new year. Let's set off getting our health to the next level. And the first place to start is by getting rid of that excess fat that is causing us so many issues. Now back to the podcast. Everyone's in for a real treat today because I have got one of your favourite guests back on my podcast again, the most amazing Dr. Christiane Northrup, who quite honestly is one of the most influential women on the planet today. So for those of you that don't know Dr. Christiane, I'm just going to tell you a little bit of her very impressive bio. Dr. Christiane is a visionary and pioneering authority in the field of women's health and wellness, including unity of mind, body, emotions, and spirit. Internationally known for her empowering approach to women's health and wellness, Dr. Northrop teaches women how to thrive at every stage of life. And she's really into tuning in and tapping into the inner wisdom and teaching us how to do the same. A multiple New York best-selling author, publishing your first book in 1994, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, and going on to publish many, many more best-selling books. A business owner, physician, former surgeon, mother, writer, and speaker, Dr. Northrop acknowledges our individual and collective capacity for growth, freedom, joy, and balance. And that's without talking about some of the stuff you've been doing over the last few years. So a big welcome, and how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I can feel the tide turning, and I'll bet you can as well. It's been really, first of all, we have to understand who we are as human beings. And I learned from Gene Decode, interestingly, he said, well, there's mankind, and then there's humankind, and they're not the same. Whoa. Then you start to think differently. Yeah. So
Sorry, yes, I love this. This is why you've got such a neat gift, Dr. Christiane, because you're really open to just constantly asking these questions. Just talk us through a little bit more about what that realization was like for you.
Well, I'd heard Gene say it before, but I'll tell you where all this started for me, and I'll just hold this up. So in 2015, I wrote this book, Dodging Energy Vampires, which was about being in relationship with a personality disordered person. And the reason that this came up in my practice and my life was that I had all these women with Lyme, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, couldn't get the thyroid right, just all of these kind of mystery things. And they would do everything. They do the cleanses, they would do the celery juice, everything. And nothing changed in their health until they realized that their life force was being parasited by someone they were living with. It could be a boss, a spouse, a child, kind of like the person who's got the drug addict child who's selling off their assets without them knowing about it. So this is like a draining of life force. So I knew about this kind of person, and I then wrote this book, Dodging Energy Vampires, where I did some research on narcissism, borderline personality disorder, histrionic, all of that. And that's about 1 in 5 people. And there's a spectrum. So the spectrum is like autism, where you can be a little bit Aspergery, or you can be a 21-year-old in adult diapers banging your head against the wall. Okay. So you can live with the people who are just kind of self-absorbed. But if it's a true full-blown sociopath, which is about 1 in 100 people, they're the guys working at the top of the food chain. And now we realize, here we are, and that was 2015. And I didn't think that Hay House would publish it at the time. I didn't, because it was considered negative, right? So all of us in the knowing how the law of attraction works, we don't want to, choose the thought that feels better, right? Always choose the thought that feels better. Well, that's a lovely strategy unless you're living with some kind of personality disorder. Well, it turns out that this book was predictive programming for what happened during the, we could call it the COVID Olympics.
Yes.
And suddenly it's almost like everyone realized, wait a minute, we're all living with an energy vampire, and it's called the government. Or it's called, I mean, who knew? Then we all start to learn, right, about the bloodline families, and that Washington, D.C. and the Vatican and the City of London are all in cahoots. And so we began, and that maybe the Truman Show is actually the truth, and we're living in a matrix. So it's this wonderful kind of great awakening where we begin to realize things are not what they seem, and that a lot of the stuff in the Bible makes sense.
Yes.
So, because what happened to me was so archetypal, actually. So I'm going along and I'm on Oprah 10 times, and I got 8 public television specials making millions for NPR, National Public Radio. I came over to London and I was on the BBC with The Wisdom of Menopause. And then the COVID thing starts, and I'm just doing what I do, just telling people what I see, what I know, which had worked very well up until this. And suddenly we realize, how is it? And I think I'd like people to really stay with this for a minute. How is it that overnight, because you know how long it takes to get anything done in your own life. I mean, my goodness, for me to clean out the junk drawer under the television, it's just going to take a while. So how is it that we suddenly have circles and arrows in every grocery store? How is it that we're locked down, but 5G towers are going up like mushrooms all over the place? And suddenly I'm a racist and an anti-Semite, but I never seemed to have that problem before. My latest, that Media Matters, which is a Soros-funded group, I just met with Joe Ladapo, who is the Surgeon General of Florida, and the two of us spoke on in the same conference. And then I get the headline from Media Matters: Surgeon General of Florida takes the stage with Hitler-loving anti-Semite. Now, that would be me. And so it's that you begin to realize, wait, okay, where did all this come from? Like, why did I have all these colleagues, like past presidents of the American Holistic Medical Association, who didn't do the thing with their children, but suddenly this is different. This is different. we've all got to do our bit, and we've got to make sure that we're breathing our own CO2 to protect someone else, even though everyone who came out and said, no, 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 here's the science about this, this is not right, got roundly censored. So we've awakened to the fact that we have been controlled by a top-down system. We can call it a top-down system. Now, I have many names for it, and I'm sure you do too, but it's basically a top-down system. But here's the cool part. Pluto is in the 29th degree of Capricorn, the anaretic degree, which means that that's the top-down Saturnian structure. And that all goes away when, well, it's going away already, but Pluto enters Aquarius on November 19th. So no matter what's going on, Aquarius is what's new, what's next. It rules Uranus. It's freedom. It is indeed the age of Aquarius, and we've left the Kali Yuga, and we're into a whole new thing now. So in a way, I've realized that my life and what's happened to me is kind of a perfect reflection of all of that. Like, we had some beliefs that have not served us. And it's amazing. I was just helping a young woman who works in healthcare in Connecticut, and she's trying to not have a flu shot for her work. She sent me what you have to sign, and they're still mandating the flu and the C thing for all workers. And I sit here amazed. How could that be happening? Meanwhile, Idaho removes the CDC recommendations for those particular shots from its from its public health websites. So do you see, we have the light shining through, and then the darkness fighting for its life, and the light shining through, and it's like this. It's flipping, and it's going to flip quickly, like all paradigm shifts do. I want to give you an example of that. This is called something called the Overton window, which I knew nothing about, but it's a political thing. And the Overton window is topics that it's okay to talk about politically. All right. When Trump got the assassination attempt with with his ear, Jack Black had his band in Australia. And one of his band members said, "It's too bad that the shooter missed." Yeah. Overnight, Jack Black's entire tour was canceled. The venue got 10,000 complaints about that one comment. Now, had it been a year before, everyone was, here's Kathy, whatever her name is, holding up a severed head of Trump, and that was all okay. But the Overton window shifted, and now what was okay last year is no longer okay. And that's where we are. And so I would like people to, and I want to say something here that's really, I've seen throughout the years. So I remember in the 80s, one of my friends wept for a week when Congress defeated the Equal Rights Amendment. She wept for a week. Now, people, that has nothing to do with us. Those big things out there that they're doing, they don't need to affect us personally in that way. If they are affecting you personally in that way, that you're crying for a week, like people lost their minds when Trump was elected, something's wrong. You've got some inner work to do. You have some inner work to do, because the people who have been my community for the last 30 years have actually believed the truth that we come here to Earth for a specific purpose, and there's a way in which we do, in fact, create our own reality. Now, you're not creating it from your ego, you're creating it from your soul, and if you'd like to know what the blueprint is, it is your astrologic chart. And you're given a script. You can play it any way you want, but you are given a script. It is not a prediction. It's a set of circumstances. And all it says is, it's apt to be raining, so why don't you take an umbrella? So right now, right, this thing that has been happening globally has been predicted for years. Cryon, channeled by Lee Carroll, all these people. This is the Great Awakening. Greg Braden talks about it. It's in the Mayan calendar. We're heading for glory here. And we came here to be here right at this moment. Is it a little bit hard to watch sometimes? Yes, because if you were born before 1987, you actually experienced some freedom. You had some freedom. You could go outside and ride your bike, and we weren't worried that you were going to be picked up by a sex trafficker in a van. But it's totally different for that group born after 1987. They have not known the freedom that we've known. Therefore, we're here to break trail. We're here to show them, oh, no, this is possible. Like, I'm reading that thing about the exemption, and I'm thinking, who would ever work for a company that does this? Oh, and not only did you have to prove that you are, and this particular woman, by the way, had 2 flu shots already, each time got dizzy, nearly fell down, had a rash, fever of 104 for 3 days. Who would take that again? Especially when you know that, in a way, you could also make the case there's no such thing as the flu, but that's a whole other thing. So we're being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed until you finally say, no more. I'm not doing it. And you're seeing it now. So what I'm seeing on X now is people doing a video of election fraud.
Yeah.
And talking about it. Now, Tucker Carlson, I did love this one. So some reporter from Media Matters, which is a Soros-founded organization, and he also founded the Center for the Countering of Digital Hate out of London. They're the ones that named 12 of us the disinformation dozen, with the lie that we were responsible for 70% of the disinformation on COVID on the internet. And so now Media Matters, they've been called out for who they are. So Tucker Carlson says to him, is this why you went into journalism? You should be ashamed of yourself. Now, it's because the New York Times and Media Matters have now come together, and what they do, they pick us off one by one. So here's what's turning around. Before, I was so shocked by the awfulness suddenly on Facebook, Instagram, like people were so nasty after just years and years of me helping people avoid a C-section, rethink a mammogram, do some delayed cord clamping. Hello, people, I am a postmenopausal woman with cats. I mean, how dangerous can I be? And then suddenly, like this global outlaw. Well, now I realize, oh, this has all been done in secret, but now we've turned on the kitchen light and the roaches are everywhere. And that's how I kind of knew this, but now I have the language for it because I've been defamed globally. If you just Google, well, you can Google my name, that's always fun. And then the disinformation dozen, I mean, globally. And I thought, okay, it means we're naming something. We're over the target. And I want to bring this back to someone's individual life because all of us have been living with bullies.
Absolutely.
Bullies. I mean, look at who's that wonderful guy that you have over in the UK? I can't remember his name, but he's a tech guy, and he wrote how it works with propaganda. And what he said is the attack surface for propaganda is much greater the more education you've had in places like Harvard or Yale or Oxford, because what you notice, and I don't know if you noticed this, I did, my basic working guys, like the guy who does the sewer system for my brother's trailer park, he never bought the propaganda.
Yeah.
And now something's wrong here. The people close to the earth. So the earth is, humus, humility, people close to the earth generally didn't buy it. And that's where the future is hyper local. Like, I love the people in my group who go to the town meetings and say, I don't think you want those windmills looking out at your view of the ocean. I mean, it's like individual people showing up. Each of us wakes up. And then, because when we are in touch with our power, which is love, but not that stupid love.
Mm.
Oh, he's only like that because he's wounded in childhood. And we have to love him right there, because only hurt people hurt people. You got to get rid of that little notion that's been used to enslave you. There are beings on this planet who have been harvesting humanity for centuries, harvesting our empathy, our compassion, our ability to love. They're called psychopaths, or Draco reptilians, or Seacars, or the bloodline families, or the deep state, or whatever it is. But I will tell you this, they do not have what you have, which is a soul. They are looking for your soul. Humans are so creative, so loving. When they come together, I have friends in North Carolina. And after that hurricane, which, by the way, was a weather weapon, and they just did
Absolutely.
it over there, they've come together in their communities, rebuilt a road in like a week.
Wow.
They were told would take 6 months. When humans come together, like a barn raising, when the Amish do a barn raising, which you could see, by the way, set to beautiful music in the movie Witness. This is the best of humanity. It's who we are. And what's going to happen, you can feel it. You and I have had at least 4 years to come to grips with what's going on. The general population is waking up, looking around, going, oh my God. Oh, whoa. Is it possible? Because it's so much easier, right, to call me a nutcase. It's so much easier than to look at your own life. So I've always said the 3 most important words in the English language are not I love you. They are I was wrong.
Yes.
I was deluded. I was deceived. And that's where your power is. I think that's what sin is, by the way. I don't, sin, the churches have kind of controlled us with, get out the flail, and, you're a worthless piece of shit. That's not it. We are, because of our goodness, we can miss the mark. But no,
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
there's so many fantastic things you said there. And I mean, I think I'd love to, you've been through so much, particularly over the last 3 or 4 years, and shown such courage to stick to your convictions. And for someone that's taken such consequences for her beliefs, for people that are at that stage, and there are a lot now that are starting to think, as you say, oh my goodness, what is going on? What words of wisdom have you got for them that they can see something, but they're still scared to question the status quo and all their whole persona of what they've been believing and how they've been living their lives up until now?
So what you want to do is start with baby steps. One of the things that Cal Washington has us doing is these notices of liability.
Yeah.
And you realize that your power comes from, your rights come from God, not the government. But we've been so trained that I'm going to get into trouble, right? I'm going to get into trouble. So you want to start with little things, like just with little things. So for instance, during COVID, I guess this wasn't a little thing, but I didn't wear a mask in airports. Everyone's wearing a mask, but I wasn't. And I'd listen over the loudspeaker and they would say it's a law, but I knew it wasn't a law. So just begin by quietly educating yourself. And then what'll happen? You will become a magnetic force for others who are believing what you're believing. And it only takes like two. You know, a conspiracy means to breathe together. That's all it means. And so the most important thing, I think, is to find at least 1 to 2 other people who are in your camp. Like, this is one of the things that I did in 2020. I knew it was wrong, so I started to have meetings in my home. And I said, in the first one, I'll never forget it, well, we're hiding Jews here and we're the Jews. Like, I didn't know what we were going to do. And we've since found out that all the normal pathways to justice were closed. We realized that the justice system was compromised, the courts were compromised, the medical system was compromised, the lawyers were compromised, everyone was compromised, and they were all scared. It shocked me how quickly people folded.
Yes.
I lost both of my publishers, both Random House and Hay House, because, oh no, she's not one of us. So, and this is exactly what has happened on Earth over and over and over. But I knew it wasn't going to happen this time. So do what is in your comfort zone, but push the comfort zone a little bit. Like, maybe say something to someone. My friend Layla Sentner, God love her, who has the Sentner Academy in Miami, she would go up to women on the playground and tell them to take the mask off their child. And she'd give them the science. I never had that kind of courage. I went all over the country and told people what was in the thing, but I didn't have that kind of courage. But she did. So do what makes sense to you. I did a little, I did this little thing, right? Mom's Guide to the Thing. And believe it or not, it's on Amazon, and it's just loaded with pictures, basically. So, so that I would do and hand that out. But just do a little something, and here's what you're going to find. Like in my neighborhood, there are political signs with the death cult. There's the death cult signs everywhere. And within those signs are all these other signs. They're called Be Nice, Be Nice. I happen to know that if I put a Trump sign on my lawn, those same people, the Be Nice people, would burn down my house. So what you do, and so it's not worth it to me, because it took about a year for people to make eye contact on the street. I walked down in my neighborhood a couple of years ago, and this guy goes, I said, oh, your wood pile's being cleaned up and first sign of spring. And he goes, oh, it's you. You're the Satan of misinformation and you're not welcome here. And it's like, yikes. That's not what people need to know. Is we're beyond that point now. We're beyond that point. And the main thing you all need to know, and this is Dannion Brinkley, my friend Dannion, who's been dead 4 times and wrote a book called Saved by the Light. The battle for the soul of humanity is being fought in healthcare.
Yes.
So what I want people to know is taking care of yourself and your health is possibly the most politically radical thing you can do. Like, step away from the current healthcare system. I wouldn't go in there for anything, but if I had to, with a broken leg or something, I'm comfortable in that setting. I was a clinical assistant professor in that setting, but now, and I was talking with Dr. Ryan Cole, the pathologist, and he said, what's happened is, first of all, those people who are in there have had so many injections that they're not thinking clearly, and they've all become iPad jockeys with a wheel table. They're not, what you think is you're going to get care. generally speaking, you're not. What you'll do is you'll get a series of disease screening tests and so on, and then a prescription for more medication. One of my friends went to her mother's care home and came away with a plastic bag full of pills. And she said, yeah, I call this geriatric trail mix. Mostly we don't need those things. So the radical thing to do is take care of your own health. Start walking, start drinking structured water. How do you structure water? Okay, so we have some water. Let's say this is some water. And you go, with my spirit, I focus divine love throughout this water. And I ask it to do beautiful things in my body. You take your breath in, hold it, and you pulse it out. The water is structured. It's that simple. My friend, Robert Fritchie, World Service Institute, worked for 25 years with Marcel Vogel, who invented the Vogel crystals.
Yeah.
And the two of them did amazing work with crystals. And Dan Willis just gave a presentation using those crystals. And he said, that's the way the Pleiadians create. But you don't need a crystal because your teeth are crystal. Your pineal gland is crystal. Your fascia is crystal. Your bones are crystal. That's our superpower, beginning to realize that we can create almost anything with intent. And when two or more are gathered, that's what Jesus taught. When two or more are gathered, there will I be also. Well, what is I? It's the fractal of God within us. And Jesus also said, these things and more ye shall do also. And then there's that wonderful verse of, and the Holy Spirit will come upon you like living water. This is all true. It's all true. So we need to shift our focus because the Big Pharma is pharmakia. It's like this kind of evil thing. You can't patent any natural occurring substance.
Exactly.
And patent it.
And we're
So
still seeing all over. I mean, I've just got back from an amazing workshop in Bulgaria with lots of traditional Chinese healing methods to clear all the energy meridians and stretch out your fascia and things. But it's amazing, Dr. Christiane, the persecution that all these natural cures and therapies they are really on a last ditch attempt to try and stop them and stop us rediscovering this ancient wisdom.
And that's exactly right. So what you want to do is do it on your own. We have in Maine, we have what's called a True Health Group. You wouldn't be able to find it on the internet if your life depended on it. It is neighbor to neighbor. It is because we know each other. So think about fascia. Fascia is the network that connects your entire body.
Yep.
And the hyphae of the fungi throughout the whole earth. That's how trees communicate with each other. And so we need to use God's internet. And that's relationships within your community.
Yep.
And so that's how we're going to have to do it. I'll tell you where people get in trouble. The minute that they start competing with Big Pharma, then they're going to shut you down. You can almost hear them. Oh, oh yeah, I see that there's someone there. They're shining their light brightly. Let's go and snuff that out. Just like my friend Alex Collier said, when the indigo children started to come in the 70s and 80s, they were the ones who were targeted by the darkness. So let's just say for everybody, coming to Earth, coming to this gangster planet, the boot camp for the soul is not for the faint of heart. And if you're here, you chose to be here, you meant to be here, and you're helping to turn the tide. Now, it's inevitable. The tide is going to, it's absolutely inevitable. The darkness has lost, and they know it. However, they're going to do everything in their power. If you're going down, take someone with you, everything in their power. And even if it kills them, this is where we need to realize we are not dealing with human beings.
Yes.
This is so hard for people. They cannot grasp that there would be beings on this planet who are as malevolent as these are. They can't
No,
grasp it,
really,
but
they really, really can't, and they genuinely can't, because in their world, no one would ever do that. So yeah,
that's
it's
right.
a tough one.
And that's how they get away with it, because they know, that as George Lewis says, Tom and Harry down at the pub are never going to believe this.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, I met a psychiatrist, Mark McDonald, at he's from LA, and he sees a lot of these girls who are gender confused. And he said it's kind of an epidemic of 12, 13-year-old girls, and it has to do with the programming of the internet. And I said, well, how do you determine who to work with? And he said, if someone is curious, I can work with them. If their mind is made up, I can't. This curiosity, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something more there. That's our superpower. And I would imagine your listeners are those people. Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
curious. Yeah.
Absolutely. And stop having to, I love the fact of like not having to know the answers. It's all about staying curious and moving with the times, because what we're being faced with now is so different to what we've grown up with. That we have to stay curious and sort of really, as you say, I think you hit on something so important with the people that are connected with nature, because I'm a cat woman like you. In fact, I've got one asleep just behind the computer. Um, I think this is the thing. It's like you cannot we're so brainwashed. I mean, everything is being recorded, everything is being listened to, everything's being programmed. My phone's off now. I used to work with Nokia. The reason they have integral batteries is they can still track you even when your phone's off.
Yes.
So this is the thing. It's like we think it's our own thoughts, but it's not our own thoughts. But when you step away from the madness of modern life and get out in nature, then the power starts waning and dissipating from you. And I'm thinking, well, why in my family? I've had the same education, the same upbringing, but my whole lifestyle is outside in nature with the animals,
Yes.
and increasingly trying to grow my own food, which I'm learning, very steeply learning and loving. But we have to step away from these influences, because the brainwashing is so real, we just don't realize it. And I can remember, like you, when watching you right at the start of this, sort of speaking out. And I can remember a year earlier having a conversation with a friend who was a policeman and really empathizing. He was working in the area, I have to be careful how I say this because of the platform we're on, but
Right.
he was working in the area of people that abused youngsters as policemen. And we were all sympathizing, saying it must be impossible to catch these people that start with the P word on the internet, because the internet's so huge. How do you police it? And then
Right.
you go on and you start going on these platforms and you mention the word COVID or vaccination, and suddenly they can delete you overnight. And then you realize it's all a lie. They've been able to catch them all along. They've just chosen not to, because it's suddenly, once you see it, that light bulb switches on. It's like those pictures where you stare at them and suddenly you see the image appear. Once you've seen the image, you can never not see it again. So sometimes these hard lessons are really important for us, because we have to see the truth of what's going on and lift that veil.
That's exactly right. And that's the beginning. So at least then you're not part of that octopus.
Yes.
Because it's a giant controlling octopus, and it's not new, everybody.
Yes.
It's not
It's,
new.
no.
No. I mean, what I tell people is on your social security card and your birth certificate, those numbers, those are bank accounts.
Yeah.
They're trading your lifetime labor. You are a slave, a debt slave. Now, you have to also determine, all right, what hill are you going to die on? Like what? So to me, the most important thing is my health. The
Yeah.
most important thing. And I'm lucky. I live in an area that's, I have a tidal river outside of my home. I've been here forever and ever. And there's a lot of organic farmers and so on around here. Oh, by the way, we just had a great win. All right. And long ago, they were telling all the farmers to put this sludge on their fields, which contains a forever chemical called PFAS. So then it's a land grab because now they're saying, oh no, that's contaminated forever. We just found out that one of the guys who inherited his father's farm began to feed his cattle hay from a non-PFAS field. And now in the milk and in the meat, the PFAS is lower than it is for the grocery store stuff. So what's important for everyone to know is this detoxification can be much faster and much easier than you've been led to believe. Because here's what they do. They constantly are making you afraid. And I would say this even for the people who got the thing. If we are indeed, as the Bible tells us 34 times, that we are made in the image of God, then we have the ability, as we move from 3D to 4D, which is what we're doing, into this next vibrational plane, then the frequency at which there are the nanobots and the tech and the whole thing, you're going to literally transcend that frequency. I absolutely know that to be true. I never worry about any of this. I've traveled on planes. I've this, I've that. I pray over the food. I got baptized. The reason I got baptized, this is interesting. So I've delivered a lot of babies, right? And the first time I ever saw a baby born, I just like, oh my God, wept with the beauty of it. I mean, I just, whoa. And there's a feeling, right? So in the church that I go to, I'd watch these people get the full immersion baptism. And it was the same in my body. Wow. It was the same. I said, oh, whoa, that's real. That's not just some fundamentalist going through a thing. I mean, and at first I didn't do it because I said, no, if I do that, it'll just be virtue signaling, like from the other direction. All the people who did the virtue signaling, like, oh, I'll never forget this very famous actress, right? Who I knew. And she puts a thing on Facebook. I keep it on my phone lest I forget. I've never been so sick in my life. Oh, please get vaccinated. It's like, oh my God. Or, that other psyop, if you're sicker than a dog, it must be working. Wow.
I know.
Now, whoa. Anyway, so all kinds of, I'm so excited about where we are. I am so excited. And people say to me, oh, it took such courage to stand up. It's like, no, it didn't. I didn't change anything I ever said. I did the same thing I'd always done. What would have taken courage was to keep my mouth shut. But that's because I got my North Node in Aries on the 10th house cusp and Moon in Pisces right on up there. And it's like, you got to do this. You've got to do this because I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I mean, it was bad enough all the circumcisions I did because I, didn't know any better, but I would never do it now. And I used my platform to say, hey, keep your little boys intact for a million reasons. And I could do a whole podcast on that one.
Yeah, it is interesting how people say this. And I think we see this a lot with everyone saying, wow, it's so brave. And it's amazing to me. You said it earlier in the podcast, Dr. Christiane, about how many people paved so quickly. And I think one thing that's clear to me from, when you and I grew up, we didn't need to talk about resilience because it was inbuilt in all of us.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Our parents were both born in London in the middle of the Second World War with all the bombing around them. And, so there was a lot of trauma there, of course, but also an inbuilt resilience. And yet we're not seeing that resilience now. Why do you think that is? And what do you think we can do about it? Is it because we've all had it too easy for so long? We've all taken away from the treadmill of life that we've been shoved on from start. We haven't had any thinking time.
No, it has to do with how we've raised our children and raised this generation. So in the 80s, we all learned about the dysfunctional family, right? We
Yeah.
learned about the alcoholic family system. I learned all about that. And so what we did, those of us in the baby boom generation, we didn't want our kids to suffer that way with family secrets and alcoholism and being beaten and all of that stuff and being bullied, the stuff that actually led to some resilience, like, cleaning out the stalls and having to stack the wood and all the stuff, right? So what we did is 180 degrees from abnormal is not normal. But I raised my kids so that, they didn't have to do those things. Now, in retrospect, I wish that they had done more of those things. Like my father would get us up in the middle of the night if we had left our bicycles out in the rain. He'd
Yeah.
wake us up and we'd put them away. So we learned that resilience was just part of life. Now, what we see, this snowflake thing. I don't know if you remember when Trump was elected. I think my daughter was at Yale. I don't know. I can't remember, but they were serving, okay, think about this. They're serving hot chocolate so that these poor children could be supported because Trump was just elected. This is
Oh,
insane. This is, and I never remember this thing that you've heard, right? When did we ever hear trigger warning?
oh, I know. I know.
Trigger warning? Like, come on. So one of the things, obviously, if you're trained as a surgeon, you gotta you've gotta buck up, folks. You're going in there to tell that woman that her baby has died. You're going in to tell a husband that his wife has terminal ovarian cancer.
Mm.
You cannot be a wean bag. I want people to be assets, not liabilities. So we need to think in terms of assets. Now, here's the good news. We now have all these people going into the trades, electrician, plumber, carpenter, culinary artist, all of this stuff. These people, what happens is when you do a job, when a job is well done, you get internally the satisfaction that you did the job well.
Yeah.
It's an internal satisfaction. Nobody can substitute for that. It is your own effort that brings that in. And Carolyn Mace used to call it, that's the power behind our eyes instead of the power outside of our eyes. So let's look at the rise of this profession called an influencer, right? What is that? I mean, it's like, I was a doctor. I did surgery. I took care of people for years and years and years. I wasn't looking to get followers on Facebook or Instagram so that when I lost my huge Instagram channel, I got a call from Dr. Joe Yee, who I love, a psychiatrist with a big channel. And he said, weren't you devastated? And it's like, no. And the reason is my wiring diagram was in place long before social media, you
Yeah.
see. So that's why, just what you said, you spend time outside in nature. And when you put kids outside in nature and you tell them, okay, you're going to build a trail here, you're going to clear this, or I have a friend who has sheep in 4-H. So she's got award-winning sheep and goes to all of the county fairs and so on. That's real.
Yeah.
That's a real skill. She has to know how to shear them. She has to know how to take care of them. We need to get our kids involved in that. And then the other thing, when you look at what happens with a cell phone, no one should have a cell phone until they're 16, 17, maybe even later, because their brains, I mean, adolescent girls by design are often depressed. They don't know who they are. Yeah, I know it's patriarchy. I get all that. And what I did for that time frame, I got migraine headaches, myopia, astigmatism, and plantar fasciitis. So I just stuffed my angst into my physical body and continued to be a straight A student. Others do other things. Now what they're doing is they're telling their parents that they're a boy
Yeah.
and getting their breasts removed. We had to get to this point where it is so out of balance. And then what'll happen? Humanity. I remember hearing this quote. America always does the right thing, but waits till the very end. I mean, sooner or later we do the right thing, but man, it takes a while. And our government and your government and the planet have all been taken over slowly, especially after World War II, by this parasitic force that is now on the way out. And the healthier you become and the more resilient you become, I absolutely know you can become almost invisible to this force, which is why Jesus said, turn the other cheek. It doesn't mean be an idiot. It means get your vibration up to the point where you become invisible to this darkness. You're literally vibrating in a plane that is above this, which is, I think, why it's been easy for me to travel and meet nice people wherever I go, and everything's been fine. I've had people say, how is it that you're still alive? Well, because I'm not poking the bear.
Yes.
I'm not poking that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I listened to a thing about Trump, how he does publicity. And he always says outrageous things just to get people to actually listen to what he's saying. So what I always say to people, don't listen to what they say, go listen directly. I've been shocked, though, that my longtime friends, we're talking 30, 40-year friendships, don't call me up. I mean, when did I turn into a Hitler-loving anti-Semite? When did that happen? Or like when I called one of my publishers to help me market the latest version of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, and he says, well, you have to come out against QAnon. That was July of 2020. I said, what? Like, what? Okay, that's where we are. Just a few. Okay, I have one more thing. I kind of love this. See if it lands. So my friend Alex Collier, the Andromedan contactee, he said, here's the thing. 200 million of us came back in time to right a great wrong. That makes so much sense to me. It's why when this whole thing started, you, Janine, all of us, suddenly the lights went on, and then we had this network all over the planet because we were the ones who were waiting for this to happen. Oh, okay, I'm on. It's my turn now. Yeah.
I so agree. And we are seeing a huge shift. You started this by saying, things are changing really rapidly, and with the astrology.
Yeah.
And it's so true. When we last spoke, which I think was nearly a year ago, we were in a very different place energetically throughout the work. And now everything has shifted, and it's shifting so quickly. So I'd love to finish off, because you're always such a great mix of, realism, not burying your head in the sand by any strength in the message, but actually a positivity. So what are you most excited about, particularly with all your expertise in the health and us taking responsibility for our health and wellness? Where do you think we're going over this next year, and what gives you the most hope?
Where we're going is we're going to understand all the parts of us that have been hidden. Our frequency, our ability to shift our health almost immediately. I look at the people like Bruno Grüning, who was the German healer who came to fame in 1949, and he would speak and huge groups of people would just get healed. Jean Agidio, who wrote a book called Whose Hands Are These? We have the ability, okay, our hearts and our hands, and by the way, the hands are a direct, embryologically, they come from the same embryologic segment as the heart. So our two biggest healers are our heart and our hands, and we emit biophotonic light.
Yep.
And we have the ability then to heal ourselves and heal each other just through our hearts and our hands. And there are things that we will do with water and so on. But the big deal for me is learning how to turn on and activate our bioelectric field, and the work of Eileen McCusick, who does the tuning forks and so on. So she has put forth where things go. But then I'm working with another energetic osteopath who has discovered a way where she can feel into someone's body, even at a distance, even on Zoom, and she can feel it and move the biofield where it needs to go. That's the future right there.
I love it. And I so agree with you. And it is a fantastic time. I think we can learn so much from, as you say, from the astrology, and using that as a blueprint, not as against free will, but absolutely not. And I think the curiosity in life, is so important. It brings such joy. So many people are afraid of it. But actually, when you embrace it, it's so empowering, and it fills you with energy and joy. Dr. Christiane, I love our discussion so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for everything you're doing. Every conversation I hear on every podcast you're at, it's so different. And yet it all links together with the key messages of what we can really do ourselves to empower us, really take back that responsibility for ourselves, and realize how much we don't need to rely on what we're being told, that we can do it ourselves. So any final words from you for everyone?
Yeah, the final word is really the best is yet to come. Now, just fasten your seatbelts, because November is going to be nutty. But Cliff High says by next spring, the United States will be the world leader in organic and regenerative agriculture. And I am so looking forward to that. But you don't need to wait. This is what I would say to people. Do it now.
Yeah.
Stand on the earth 20 minutes a day, barefoot. I know it's getting cold. You can put down a cotton towel or a wool blanket that will still bring in the electrons. Be out in the sunlight. We know that if you get sunlight on your skin, it activates all kinds of wonderful things. Breathe deeply through your diaphragm, breathe through your nose. These things are life-changing. They cost you nothing, and they're so simple.
Love it. And all your links will be below, including how to sign up for your newsletter, collect with all your work, and access all your books. Anything in particular in that you want people to connect in with you?
Well, my Substack is where I'm, keeping the things most current, but drnorthrup.com has everything. So I put the, I tend to put the gnarly stuff on Telegram. The Substack is how to live. So we've got our detox Mondays, and we got our menopause moments on Thursdays. And so check in with that, because at the end of the day, I am still a women's health doctor.
I love it. It's so much good information. So please do, everyone, check out the links. It will be in the description box below. Connect in, get this knowledge back, get the community spirit. And thank you so much, Dr. Christiane. It's always such a pleasure. And thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word, and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.